Good evening and welcome to this little video about cylinder head jobs and valves in particular, and the effect of newer unleaded fuel with extra additives to I believe it's to bring emissions down, but the fact that this newer fuel, one, doesn't last anywhere near as long. I mean, years ago you could leave a car up for a year or two maybe, and the fuel would still fire the car up. Now you can leave a car for like just a couple of months, and the fuel is off. It's no good anymore. I've just been doing this cylinder head. It's off a Renault Scenic that had done 80 to 90,000 miles, and something that I'm noticing. I've done all of these valves aside from this one here that's white. I'm noticing this a lot more with this newer fuel that goes off quicker and seems to be actually detrimental to the engine. So in the quest for low emissions, the fuel is harming the engine more, or at least that's what I am thinking from what I'm seeing. I've been rebuilding cylinder heads and doing head gasket jobs for roughly 20 years, and you see this kind of grey-white build-up. This isn't the worst I've ever seen. I've seen a lot worse than this, but you never used to see this kind of whitishness on the valves. This is an exhaust valve. Generally, the exhaust valve used to be just black. Now you see a kind of, you see it's really shiny. You get like it's got a some sort of glaze over the valve face there, and when I clean this in a minute, I'll pause and I'll clean this down to start the lapping process. The valve seems to get a hell of a lot more pitted with newer style fuel than they ever used to do with older unleaded or 4-star. If you're old enough to remember 4-star. Now, as you can see with this, I've lapped in all of these. You can see there's nice clean new faces here and on the exhaust side up until this last one, which is the one that I'm just about to do. This relates to this valve, and you can see that the valve face, I'm not sure that you can see it actually, but there's, see if we can get in there. I'll put a torch on it, bear with me just a sec. Does that make it better or worse? God knows. No, it's with this crappy phone camera, it's difficult to show, but you get a lot of more spotting on the actual valve seat. You know, it seems to be that there's a more detrimental effect on the valve seat as well with this newer unleaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to clean this glaze off, and I'm going to show you the state of the valve after I've done that, and you'd probably be surprised just how pitted it is underneath that glaze. So we'll do that now. Okay, so we're back, and if this will focus, I've just cleaned the glaze off this, and you can see this isn't the worst valve. I maybe should have done a video with the worst valve, but you can see just how much pitting there is on that valve face. Which is the angled part with all the little black dots. That's the pitting into the metal, which is what we try to get rid of when we're relapping the valves. Valves, say 10 years ago even, just didn't get this bad, and I'm noticing more and more that we're getting this horrible white glazing and glazing on the faces themselves, and a lot more pitting of the actual valve. These I've been lucky enough and I've managed to get them really quite good. I've nearly eradicated the pitting. The one before that I did, which is over here, was actually worse pitted than that, and after a good deal of work lapping it, is that in focus? Seems to be. You can see that there is no longer, you can still see a couple of tiny dots, but it's reacted very well to being lapped in. But it takes a hell of a lot longer as well to lap in your valves these days because of this issue. So modern unleaded, what can we take from this? What am I trying to get at? Effectively, newer unleaded is not as pleasant for your engine. It's actually detrimental to the internals of the engine. I would suggest, in order to lessen the effect of this, would be to use, I always use Red-X quarterly in a petrol engine, so you know, once every 4 months or so. That's not quite quarterly, but you know, around about then. And the last time I took one of my own cylinder heads apart, having used Red-X, other brands are available, but I just tend to use Red-X. I've found that this is nowhere near as apparent. You still get a tiny bit of pitting on the valves, but that's par for the course. You know, that's how they get in operation. Having said that, I feel that a fuel additive is less of a luxury these days and more of a necessity to keep your vehicle running, your petrol engine running, and to protect it to the best of your ability. So that's just from my experience over the years, and I don't know whether that's been of any use to anyone, but yeah, just a quick little video explaining what I've found through my years of meddling with these things. So next thing to do is finish that last valve off, get all the valves and the valve stem seals and everything, all that good stuff back together, dump this back on the block and bolt it down. I think that'll be me for the day, and I'll finish up the rest of the engine tomorrow. But yeah, conclusion, I would say use an additive with your unleaded fuel, because it's nowhere near as good for the engine as older unleaded used to be. If you've got any comments, whether you agree, disagree with me on this, or you want to like or subscribe, then feel free to do that. Yeah, get in touch, let me know what you think about what I'm chatting on about. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care till next time. Cheers.